Uncle Fezzi's Mad Lab. Well, this video was originally supposed to be a 5-minute video that just showed me taking this thing out of the printer, and ta-da! Next video would be Miss Daisy rolling around on her knee rover, well, me rolling around on Miss Daisy's knee roller with the cup holder on there. It didn't work that way. So bear with another 40-minute long video, give or take a little bit. So we're gonna cut to where I take this out. Hey everybody, welcome back to Uncle Fezzi's Mad Lab. What's Uncle Fezzi up to now? Well, as we all know, I am delving into the world of 3D printing with my X1 Carbon here. And I thought it'd be interesting to have an unveiling on camera. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible because I checked my analytics again the other day, and I'm whittling my way down to 2 minutes. So, what's the newest, latest, and greatest thing? Well, quite frankly, I made a cup holder for my wife's Neely, her knee rover, because I got tired of carrying her drink cup around. Also, part of the reason this shot is real tight is I'm working on the garage still, and I don't want to reveal too much of what I've done around here. It's not a lot, but if you know me, you'll know it's a massive thing. So, what's in the box? What's in the box? A cup holder. Oh, popped off already. All right, well that's great because it popped off the build plate. So this is the cup holder that I made. I designed the whole thing. That's actually really cool. It's exactly what I wanted it to do. It's exactly what you want it to do, is you want it to pop off when you want it to, but not pop off when it's not supposed to. So I used 2 colors. I used this PLA silk dual color filament that my wife picked out for her own. When we went up to Micro Center, and she just picked this. She thought it looked cool, and quite frankly, it does kind of look cool. I like PLA silk. I know it's super duper flimsy and weak, but it looks cool. So, and I used tree supports. So when I ran this through the slicer the first time, it had this massive amount of support that it wanted to do with a grid support, and I'm like, I learned that lesson with this piece. Oh, I put it over there already. You know what? You don't get to see that in this video. I have another piece over there that it had grid support all over. It took me forever to get it off. I actually think this thing is too small for the 3rd time. This is actually the 2nd print that I've done with this. So, oops. Basically, let's pull the supports off of it as much as I can, easily. Okay, so the way this is supposed to work, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to do it all on camera because nobody watches my stuff if I yammer on too long. We're going to find out on camera if I did this right. So, short answer is I didn't. Yeah, I did. All right. What the hell's going on here? There it goes. A little bit of kinetic encouragement. So when I did, let's see if I can see inside of there. When I designed this, I actually designed it to take these bolts on the inside here, and then hopefully everything lines up. So the important part of this is I designed the entire thing myself in Tinkercad. So this was a multi-layered project. It was completely and totally and utterly worthless project, but there's multiple different disciplines that I taught myself. That's something I should mention, and I don't know whether or not it's ever come through on my videos, but with very few exceptions, I teach all this stuff myself. I'm self-taught. I take great pride in being able to open a book or read a video, read literature, watch videos, very similar to the ones I put out. That's why I make YouTube videos. To do my own thing, right? I don't like relying on other people for anything. I can already see that this is actually not going to work all that great. This holder here is undersized, so I'm going to have to address that. I'm fairly sure when I go to bolt this to the handlebars on her wheelie, it's going to crack, or she'll break it. I call her Bob the Destroyer because she figures out how to break pretty much everything I make. But that's okay because I can always reprint just this piece. This ain't getting reprinted. I can tell you that right now. Because multiple reasons. This print took 8 hours to print. Now I don't care that it took 8 hours to print, other than I had about 5 other things I wanted to print today. But just adding Miss Daisy in a different color created this purge tower, and the purge tower is actually pretty cool. It's neat. This much poop. It made as much poop as it did. It used as much filament. It used as much filament to make these letters as it did to print the whole thing. Now, if I was doing 10 of these, it wouldn't really be too big of an issue, but I only did 1, so this amount of waste is unacceptable. I would have never, if this wasn't for my wife, I would have never printed it this way. But because this was a multi-faceted experiment, I figured why not. You know, these are not colors that I don't particularly like. This is supposed to be slate gray marble, and that is pansy piss. It's a light blue that I don't particularly care for. I've printed some other stuff out with it, and I don't really like it. And there's this immense amount of poo. Just as it's a pretty big ashtray. Your aunt had one in her house, I'm fairly sure. But there's that much poo for that little bit. The supports, you know, the supports are supports, but the amount of poo that came out to do this, and what I ought to do is re-slice it without the color and see how long it would take to print. This print should have probably only taken about 3 hours, if not less, without adding the second color. This thing took forever to purge the color out of it. I know why it did it, and I know what it was doing, but it's think long and hard before you decide you want to do 2 colors. Now, okay, it is now 2 days after the first time I shot a video, or after the first part of the video that you saw, or actually the second part of the video that you just saw. Now, what has this project turned into? Well, quite frankly, this project has turned into a, Uncle Fezzy fiasco, because they always do. What was originally supposed to be a joke gift for my wife, Miss Daisy, has turned into an engineering feat, and for multiple different reasons. One is I am Veruca Salt, and I didn't check my work before I went further to the next stage of the project. I'm using Tinkercad to make all this stuff. So, if you're not familiar with the way Tinkercad works, for the short, I'm not a CAD person, okay? So that needs to be well established. I've tried multiple different types of CAD programs over the years. I've talked about it in my other videos. Tinkercad's awesome because it's made for children, and that's about the level of intellect I have, and skill level. But one of the things that Tinkercad does that I don't like is it doesn't provide a history of what you've done beyond undo, ungroup, undo, and ungroup. So it's not like Photoshop or GIMP or one of those other ones where you can go into a history file, pick a spot in the history, and go exactly back to that. It doesn't work that way. You have to go, from my experience, from what I've used with the program, is if you make a mistake, if you make a change, you have to make the change all the way back to the original change that you made. That's where we're going with this. So, as expected, as realized, this is the third time I printed this. I quit all the other prints before I'd gone any further. Oh, this is also a fantastic example of the metric system as the tool of the devil. Yes, the metric system is the measurement system of science, and the vast majority of the world uses it. I don't. I'm in the United States. I'm a dumb American, right? You know, the people that not for nothing put a man on the moon and detonated 2 nuclear weapons in war. So I still use the standard measuring system, and the numbers don't always coordinate in my head. I can't do math in my head, right? So yeah, 50 millimeters is about 2 inches. 60 millimeters that's about 2.5 inches, right? No, it's not. It's 60 millimeters is 60 millimeters because 50 millimeters isn't 2 inches. So that being the case, yeah, it didn't fit. It didn't even remotely fit. And I knew it wasn't going to fit. It never even occurred to me how bad it wasn't going to fit. So I went back into Tinkercad and I reprogrammed. I revisited the design. I redid the program. I resliced it, and voila! I have the correct size cup holder now. This is perfect. This is the exact size that I wanted. I did 2 major mistakes. One was I printed this in PLA silk, which is, by its very nature, is a weak PLA. It doesn't. This is really for sculptures and the articulated dragons and all the silly stuff, the tchotchkes that you print, benchies, whatever, right? So that's part of why this is now in 2 pieces. It's actually in 4 pieces. I knew going into this that this was not going to work because it broke. It breaks. This is actually the second one of these I printed. I broke it. I knew it was going to break because it was a piss poor design to begin with. And I can't reiterate enough that I spent my entire career, for the sake of argument, unfucking things. And I know right away when I look at something that whether or not it's going to function properly. And I knew this wasn't going to function properly. It looked beautiful. It was elegant design, but using the materials that I was using, it wasn't going to fly. I knew this, but I did it anyway because I'm a half-wit. The other thing that I forgot to do was when I was in Tinkercad and I was designing this. When I was designing this part of the design here, I had to revisit this. Now, in Tinkercad, this goes back to the group, ungroup, group, ungroup, group, ungroup, group, ungroup part of the process. I had originally taken into consideration, and I do show this in the other part of the video, countersinking these bolts into this. Well, when I printed it, when I revisited the print, I forgot to check that this went through. Actually, that's not true. I did check this, and in Tinkercad, it showed that this hole still existed. But apparently, when I ran it through the slicer, it didn't, and I didn't check the slice before I ran it. Another thing I mentioned earlier in the video is how long would this project take if I ran it through as a single color if I didn't run 2 colors. Increasing the size of this, and I'm glad I didn't do this, increasing the size and 2 colors would have turned this into a 17-hour print. Yeah, not for nothing, I don't have any interest in doing a 17-hour print on a joke. So I resliced this and I ran it through. I ran it through that way, and it was a 3.5-hour print. I knew 3-hour print, 3.5-hour print. That's fine. I had no issue with that. So what was the next mistake that I made? Well, again, the metric system is a tool of the devil, and I can't do math in my head. So when I went to go install this on the handlebars, this overhang here didn't print properly. It didn't print correctly. So when I went to install this on the bar, this part here, this piece right here, the overhang was a little bit too much. The radius wasn't perfect. Even though the radius that I entered into the program should have been. I checked the radius. The radius should have been 20, or no, I forget what it is off the top of my head. The radius should have been correct for the size of the bar. And it wasn't. And you can see in the print here how it flattens out. Well, that flat, when you go to put something that's even remotely flat around something that's round, it doesn't work too well. That doesn't matter whether you're 3D printing or machining or anything. It just doesn't work all that great. So what happened was, and this is another one of those, Archimedes was a smart motherfucker. When I went to go put this piece onto the handlebars, the wedge force of me trying to push this together split this. Okay, and not only it split right there, exactly where it was going to. Okay, because it's right at the apex of the arc. It split it. Boom. That was the end of the print. And it split perfectly along a layer line too. From a structural or materials engineering standpoint, it's actually it did exactly what I expected it to if I had screwed it up. Well, I screwed it up, and it did exactly as I expected it to. Yeah, you know, boom. So now I have two pieces. Now, the other one that broke was this. Now this is the piece that goes. This is the piece that holds it in place, and as you can see, this is an updated and upgraded design. I put nuts. I made the holes for 1/4 nuts inside of here, and it worked great. I used, you know, Archimedes again, smart dude. I undersized these holes a little bit. I need to bump them up about 1/10, and they'll fit a little bit better. I had to draw them in, which actually wasn't a problem and didn't really cause any problems when I used the screw. When I used the screw, the bolt, to draw the nut into the hole, it pulled right in. Now, this is another very interesting thing to me, and that this print, this part of the print, did not fail as I had expected it to. This one failed. This one just broke. So you can see this is a dirty break. In my world, I call this a dirty break. This wasn't a clean break. This was a dirty break. This was a failure of the material, not of the design. This is a failure of the design. This is a failure along a perfect break along the layer line. If I was forced, I probably could glue this back together and clamp it, and you'd never know that I did it. The other thing is, I may revisit the infill on this. 3D printing is new to me, right? So there's certain things that I need to learn. The other thing that bugs me with Tinkercad is you can't get anything actually perfectly round. Everything is some form or another. This is a 64-sided square. It's not round. I have yet to try doing that in the Bambu slicer. The Bambu slicer may actually make stuff round. So what's the next step here? Well, the next step is this has now become a mission. I'm going to go back into Tinkercad and I'm going to repair the design. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to put the, make sure that I have my offsets or my countersinks are properly put in here, because that was the beginning of the failure of this print. When I popped this thing off the build plate the other day and I looked and I saw that these holes weren't even in here. When I saw that mistake, I was like, this whole thing is going to break. It's not going to work. So the revisit is going to be, I'm still going to print it out of the silk PLA, but I'm going to change the infill to a geo whatever pattern. And I'm going to make this hole bigger. And what I may do, and oh, fuck that thing. What I may do is print a TPU sleeve to go on the inside of that to give it a little bit more cushiness. So I'm going to make this hole bigger. I'm going to make this hole bigger. So stick around for the rest of the adventure. I'll save you me futzing with Tinkercad for 3 hours to make a hole bigger. And then we'll go from there. Okay, here we are, actually 4 hours later. And here it is. Notice it's not printed in silk PLA. I consulted Miss Daisy, and I explained to her what happened, and she agreed with me. Miss Daisy's actually an intellectual properties attorney that has spent her entire career dealing with goofy inventors and material analysis. So when I explained to her in R&D terms why the silk PLA was not the type of material that should be used for this type of particular project, she agreed. That's her job. So here we are. Like I said, 4 hours later. Now, there's a couple different things about this that are significant. So one of the things is, when I went to reprint this, I reprinted it in a different material. I reprinted this in this is a standard matte PLA. They call this slate gray marble. That shit is blue as blue can be. You know, before I became a tinkerer at home, I was a professional painter, and that shit is blue. But I was able to go back into Tinkercad and play around, and I got my holes correct. Should probably have my monitor there. Okay. So I got my holes correct, and the bolt fits perfectly inside of here. As a matter of fact, it fits absolutely perfectly inside of here. It does exactly the way it was intended. It goes in there, and it threads in here the way it's supposed to. If you don't have one of these, I highly suggest buying one. You know, real exciting, I know. Okay, now, theoretically, to make this ADA compliant, I should probably put a cap over the end of it or cut the bolt off. I ain't doing either one of those, at least not yet. We'll see how it goes with Miss Daisy. The other thing you will see or notice is that my hole is still crooked, but that is because I changed the radius of both pieces to take into consideration the handlebars not being perfectly round. I did I went back and looked at the Rover, and the handlebars are not perfectly tubular. They're not tubular. They're not perfectly round. So the game plan is, when I go to put this together, once this is like this, it'll actually be a lot closer to the way it's supposed to be. Actually, I think this is upside down. Yeah, so that piece is actually upside down. So that goes in there like that. Now, just because I have a, well, probably an audience that already shut off. I wanted to show just real quick how I got the nut in the hole. Nuts. So I didn't actually resize these. I should have, but I didn't. It was a little bit of an oversight on my part, but it doesn't matter because they are sized perfectly for the 1/4 nut. So again, I can't stress enough how smart that Archimedes guy was. Getting the nut to go in and stay in and be a permanent fixture is relatively easy. So line the nut up and then just thread it in. The force required is not substantial, but they just draw right in and stay in. They don't require any adhesive, nothing like that. Good. This PLA has a little bit of give to it. The silk did not. The silk just cracked when I did that the first time. I ignored it because actually that's not where it failed. But there we go. Now I'm going to take this back in the house and I'm going to install it in the knee rover. You're not going to get to see this installed for a lot of reasons, but the main reason is you don't get to see it installed. There we go. Oh, the other thing, and this is kind of significant too, is when I reprinted this, the Bambu Labs slicer has different options for infill. I was going to play with the slicer and do my own infill. Instead, I chose to use a pre-selected slice, which is 2mm standard strength, or strength. Because I was so rudely interrupted, I was able to go in and steal Miss Daisy's knee rover from her. That's what she gets for calling me. So this is actually great, right? Because I can now show exactly what I was talking about with the radius on this tubing. Okay, so when I originally this is a classic Uncle Fezzy. This is classic for me, right? So when I originally did this, I took out my radius gauges that I printed out, and I picked the one that matched perfectly. Okay, so this is an 11mm. This is 11 millimeters. I took out my calipers. I measured it. It came out to 22 millimeters. It was fantastic when I measured it this way. The problem is, it's actually not round. Okay, so what they did, and I've run into this before, if you've ever built anything out of tubing, you know this. When they built this, they stuck it into a press and pressed it, and when they pressed it, it made the tubing no longer round. The side effect of that, on my end, is that this does not fit. So this is where I want to mount it, and it doesn't fit when you put it this way. But when you rotate it, the radius is perfect. Yeah, it's like well, it's not perfect because I made the radius bigger in Tinkercad, right? In the CAD program, I made the radius bigger to try to make up for this. So I measured it this way, but I didn't measure it this way. I checked the radius this way, but never this way. And actually, even if you check it with the radius tool this way, oh yeah, you can see it right here. I can see it. I don't know if it'll show up. But if you check the radius this way, yeah, you can see that it's significantly different than it is this way, which is how I checked it. I just went up to it and went, oh, we're just fine. That's no bueno. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little piece of sandpaper on a stick. Actually, what I ought to do is put a piece of sandpaper on this. Put a piece of sandpaper on here. Like that. And just give it a little bit of... Yeah, it didn't work as well as I was hoping it would. And that's a little hard to do it on camera, too. Oh, fuck this. I'll be back. Okay, it was easier to change the camera angle than it was to move this thing. So, sandpaper on a stick. And I just cleaned the hole up. People say that PLA doesn't sand well. As someone who spent a considerable amount of their time sanding stuff, PLA sands pretty good if you ask me. I don't know if it'll show up on camera from that angle, but when you look at it down from the top, you can see that this is squished, right? So now, it doesn't fit absolutely perfectly, but it fits a hell of a lot better than it did before. You have to live with that goofy angle. Scorsese, I am not. Okay, so that's there. We're gonna stick that through there. And then that through there. And hopefully Archimedes isn't going to take me out. We'll hope. I have my fingers crossed. And yes, I checked to make sure that the cup fit. Look at that. Miss Daisy has her cup holder. I might. Let's see if I can put a little... See how far I can take it before I break it. I don't... We're going to back that off. One click. We all heard that little crack. I'm going to back this one off. And then we're going to tighten this one up. Okay, she's not putting 1,000 pounds of weight in there, but it needs to be pretty tight. The other thing I could do here is put a drop of the Spinster's Friend in there. Or, actually, what I could probably do is put a piece of sandpaper on the inside of this. Now, we're good. Okay. Now, Miss Daisy has her cup holder for her wheelie wearily, or her kneelie. So, Hoke doesn't have to go carry her water for her every time she wants to go sit on the couch. There we go, kids. An engineering masterpiece. Follow me for more tips on how to waste 2 days to make something that you could buy at Walmart for $2.